So for this project, it's very, very simple, but there's a lot of steps. And once I go through and explain all those steps, you are on your own. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna write your name, you're gonna write your code, then you're gonna flip your paper over, and then you obviously need a newspaper under your paper. You're also gonna have this white piece of paper. As soon as you get this white piece of paper, you need to start tearing a little bit at a time. You're only getting one of these pieces of paper. So if you notice, I'm using both of my fingers and I'm kind of stopping the rips as I go, because if I rip it all the way across diagonal, I don't want to do that. And you're gonna see why in just a minute. So you're gonna start with the chalk. The chalk, you're gonna only use a little bit, one at a time. So I'm gonna put it up towards the top of my paper. I want to create chalk dust on top of the white paper as I go across. So if you notice, I'm just making pink marks and I'm leaving space between. This is not taking me a long time. This tends to be the longest part of the project and people are taking way too long, but it is really cool, so I get it. So now once I have that covered, I have some dust here. I'm not moving the paper, I'm holding it down with my hand. I'm going to start swiping up with my thumb, and I'm still using the same hand. So notice my left hand is not gonna ever touch the chalk. That's the hand that's controlling the paper and holding the paper down. So then I'm gonna remove it. I'm gonna start tearing the next level, okay? Now, you're gonna do this like 3 or 4 times until you get to the middle of the paper. So I may go a little bit faster than you normally would go. I'm making a pile of paper here that can go in the trash whenever you're ready. Now I'm gonna move it down a little bit. I'm gonna start with some different colors. I'm again creating chalk dust on top of the white paper, leaving a little bit of space. I always recommend use 2 or 3 colors, but as you go, make sure you're putting the chalk back, because when you're not putting it back, it's just gonna end up falling on the ground and then it just becomes a total mess. Okay, so now I'm done with that. I'm gonna swipe up and I'm gonna keep doing that until I get to the bottom of the paper. So we're gonna pretend like I'm at the bottom of the paper, okay? So pretend, not the bottom, the middle of the paper, I'm so sorry. So pretend that I'm there, okay? All this paper that I have, and you only get this one paper, but it'll be torn down. All of this is gonna go in the trash, okay? So we'll pretend that I put that in the trash. The next thing you're gonna do, you're gonna get a white piece of chalk, okay? You're gonna come across the paper and you're gonna make a line across the middle. Above that line, you're gonna make a slightly bumpy line, okay? That's gonna be your snow. Notice my hand, my left hand is holding down my paper. My right hand is the only thing touching my chalk. As soon as I'm done with this piece of chalk, I'm gonna go put it back in the bucket up at the front. And then I'm gonna use a finger or 2, and I'm going to gently smudge my snow. Now notice I'm staying inside the lines of my snow, but when I'm done, sometimes I have a little bit of chalk dust left, and I'm still smudging here to kind of fix that. I'm going to go ahead and tap my paper very carefully so I get some of that dust off. Now notice I have chalk on my fingers. I'm allowed to get 1 piece of tissue at any point and go ahead and wipe my fingers off, and I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it there because I may need it. Now I'm gonna go underneath my snow and I'm gonna think about the colors that I used for the reflection. This is gonna be the water. So these are the colors that would be reflecting from the mountains. So any of the colors that I used up on the sky, I can use inside my water. And then I'm gonna take that same hand that I've been using for my chalk and I'm going to blend across my paper, okay? So I'm just trying to make it look kind of watery. Then I'm gonna wipe my hands off. The next thing I'm gonna do is add my my trees. And I had a black oil pastel here that disappeared. So what I'm gonna do for my trees is I have to make, I would say 5 to 8 trees. So what I recommend, you can either start from the top and you're gonna start with a little triangle, and that triangle is gonna kind of get wider. Basically, all you're doing is you're making diagonal and straight lines and you're making them black and filling them in to look like a cypress tree, okay? You can have little bitty ones. So instead of starting at the top, I can also, if I want to, start at the bottom and make it wider and kind of work up. Okay, you don't want a tree to look like this. Okay, because that's like too light and it's too sparse. So the trees in the winter, these trees would be they would have a lot of branches and foliage on them. So we want to make sure we color it in. Some of them can come all the way to the top, which that would be the bigger tree. So I'm gonna make this guy a little bit bigger. And typically they're like kind of the shape of, I guess you could think of almost like an arrow that gets smaller as it goes to the top. So like the wider parts would be down here, and then as it gets taller, or up to the top, it gets kind of narrower at the point of the arrow. Some people think of it as a triangle, but really it's not that shape. Or you can try it like this, and you can wiggle on diagonal one direction and then wiggle on diagonal the other, and then kind of fill it in. So there's lots of different ways you can kind of try to do it. And then I'm gonna do a little teeny guy right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have wax stuff here, so I can always go up to the trash and kind of shake that off, or again, I can do it on my paper, okay? Once I've done this part, I totally forgot to do my reflection. So my reflection in my water is gonna be the shape of my tree, but upside down. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just take it on this, put it down on the paper, and I'm gonna slightly kind of make the shape of the tree. And I'm just gonna do a very, very light rubbing. So it's not gonna be anything that would be very dark. But sometimes people like to kind of go like this and hold it like they're coloring with it, and do that same shape upside down with it like they're drawing from it. So either way is totally fine. The very last thing you are gonna do is go to the splatter box, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute.